The town of Red Creek had always been a quiet place. Population fewer than 5,000. Small houses, evergreen forests all around, and a sense of peace. But once a month, on the night of the full moon, everything changed. No one went outside. Doors were locked from the inside, and everyone waited. Waited for it to finish feeding. Jack Ford, a 30-year-old mechanic, never believed in monster stories. But that night, he heard the screams. Real ones. Not myths, not childhood horror tales. Human screams full of terror. He looked out the window and saw it. A silhouette among the trees. Tall. Too tall. The street lamp cast its weak light onto a massive figure with glowing yellow eyes. And then it looked right at him, and Jack realized that the next victim was him. Jack couldn't move. The creature stood at the edge of the forest, half hidden in the shadows. Massive, unreal. It breathed heavily, rasping. The air itself seemed to vibrate, as if the night had thickened, become heavier. Jack blinked. The figure was gone. No, it was moving, fast. First, to the left, then a sharp dart to the right. It wasn't walking. It was gliding through the darkness like a predator picking its angle of attack. Something icy gripped his chest, and then silence. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, but Jack felt it. It was there, somewhere close, watching. He shut the curtains, pressed his back against the wall, and held his breath. The night passed, but the fear remained. At dawn, Jack finally gathered his courage and stepped onto his porch, and froze. On the ground, right beneath his window, were tracks. But they were wrong. Not human, not animal, too long, too deep. 5 clawed marks dug into the dirt, as if something had been raking the ground with its hands. And something even worse. The tracks didn't lead into the forest. They started right at his window, as if something had stood there, watching. The tracks under his window didn't disappear. Jack couldn't unsee them, no matter how much he wanted to. He wanted to tell himself it was a prank, that his imagination was playing tricks on him. But no, they were real, deep, fresh. And the only thing he knew for certain, he didn't want to know what had made them. The next day, when Jack arrived at his auto shop, the town was already talking about a disappearance. Dan Harper, the local forester, had gone missing during the night. Neighbors heard him screaming, and then silence. When the police arrived at his house, they found only his front door left wide open, and bloody footprints leading into the woods. Jack felt a chill crawl up his spine. The screams, he had heard them that night too, but something even worse made his stomach tighten. When he asked where exactly Dan had disappeared, he got his answer. On the outskirts, near the forest, by the old farm, near his house. That evening, Jack came home earlier than usual. He locked the doors, closed the windows, and waited. But instead of the usual night silence, he heard something else. From the forest, far away, but too close, came a whisper. Low, inhuman. Not a voice, a whisper, as if something was calling his name. Jack. He froze. Come. No, he wouldn't go. But his feet were already moving toward the door. Jack stopped at the last second. His hand was already touching the doorknob, but he didn't open the door. He didn't let himself go outside. And yet, something out there in the woods knew his name. The next morning, Jack went to the local library. Red Creek was a small town, but it had a long past, and in that past, he hoped to find answers. Miss Phillips, the elderly librarian, raised her eyebrows when he asked about strange events related to the full moon. I thought no one asked about that anymore, she murmured. Half an hour later, Jack was sitting in front of a stack of old newspapers and faded documents. And there, he found what he was looking for. Almost every 10 years, Red Creek had an unsolved disappearance, always on the night of the full moon. 1953, Farmer Henry Wells vanished. A week later, his body was found torn to pieces in the woods. 1964, Sarah Dowling went missing. Her body was never found. 1975, Forester Harold Reeves. Only his clothes were found, hanging from the trees, again and again. Then he found another article. It had been 10 years since the last case, and a new victim was due. In the faded records, he stumbled upon a name he had never heard before: the Black Stag. That's what they called something that emerged from the forest once every 10 years, when the full moon coincided with the first snowfall. Locals believed it was a creature, a ghost, or the spirit of an ancient curse. A massive shadow with burning eyes. It didn't kill to eat, it hunted for sport. And those who saw it, there was nowhere left for them to run. Jack went cold. He had seen it that night. And now he knew who the next victim was: himself. Jack knew his time was running out. He didn't understand how it worked. Why did the monster choose only those who had seen it? But he knew one thing. He had seen it, and that meant he was next. That night, Jack didn't sleep. He locked the door, closed the windows, but the fear was inside him, as if he already knew that resisting was pointless, as if it had already come for him. At 2:46 a.m., the first sound came. Footsteps outside, but not normal footsteps. Heavy, measured, like something enormous was moving slowly but deliberately. Step, pause, inhale. Then, a knock on the window. Jack didn't move. A massive shadow blocked the glow of the street lamp, and then it looked in through the window, burning yellow eyes, a long tattered shadow. It was watching him. And then a voice echoed inside his mind. Come out. The voice wasn't loud, but it burrowed straight into his thoughts. Come out, Jack. His hand reached for the door handle on its own. No, it was playing with him. It was waiting. It knew. But his legs no longer listened to him. He opened the door. Jack opened the door. The freezing night air hit his face. It stood on the threshold. Tall. Too tall. Not human. Not an animal. Something else. Darkness given form. The creature didn't move. It just stared at him. Its glowing eyes burned into his mind. And deep inside, in the pit of his soul, Jack felt that it was waiting. Waiting for his decision. Run or accept. He could run, but where? How do you escape something that comes for you even in your dreams? The wind howled. Somewhere far away, a wolf howled in response. Jack took a step forward. The monster didn't flinch. His voice broke. The creature tilted its head. You saw. Jack understood. It didn't hunt random people. It gave a choice. It waited. And now the choice was his. Run and hide, or accept what was already inevitable. He took another step. The forest called to him. In the darkness, shadows moved. Others, just like it. Yellow eyes glowed in the night. And he realized this wasn't the end, it was the beginning. At sunrise, the town of Red Creek found Jack's house. The door was wide open. There were no signs of struggle, but Jack was gone. Vanished, like all the others before him. Like everyone who had seen the Black Stag. But deep in the forest, hidden in the shadows, something new was hunting. And it still remembered its name. Once, it had been Jack Ford. Now, it was one of them. 10 years passed. The town forgot. People stopped being afraid. The full moon no longer made them uneasy. But one night, a scream echoed through the darkness. And in someone's window, 2 yellow eyes reflected back.